Dozens of humanitarian groups have made that assessment, and they are sharply critical of the US decision, saying instead of improving conditions in Gaza, Israel has actually made things worse. Civilians fleeing northern Gaza tell of a chronic lack of food and people dying of hunger as aid agencies warn the area is on the brink of famine. Well, I'll get some perspective for you now from the Israeli side. Shimon Friedman is the spokesperson for COGAT. That stands for Coordination of Government Activities in the Territories. And COGAT charged with implementing the government's civilian policy within the West Bank and coordinates with the IDF for activities in Gaza. Shimon, it's good to have you. And thank you. The humanitarian situation in Gaza now has been described as apocalyptic for months now by multiple people. I spoke to Mohamed Hadi just recently, one of the UN agency's leads, who described northern Gaza as beyond imagination. Since the letter the US sent to the Israeli government last month, what changes have been made to improve the humanitarian situation?
Israel, first of all, thank you for having me. Israel has been continuously improving our capacity to facilitate humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip. And this has been an ongoing process since the beginning of the war, with the openings of additional crossings, with increasing our capabilities for security inspections, and so on. As a part of those ongoing processes, in the past few weeks, we have had many additional projects take place. One of them was the opening of the Kisufim crossing yesterday. So this is the fifth crossing where humanitarian aid can make its way into the Gaza Strip. We're seeing continued aid coming through land, air, and sea. So lots of different projects have been taking place.
I spoke to one of the groups who has not only made an assessment on the ground as one of a series of humanitarian groups and aid agencies, but actually were part of what was a scorecard put together to rate the Israeli activities on the ground. This is what the Mercy Corps group told me yesterday. Have a listen.
Noting that there was an announcement of an additional border crossing that's been added to the other existing ones, which by and large for the course of this crisis have not been open all the time, are frequently closed, and have really been bottlenecks to getting aid into Gaza. This is obviously a positive development and one of the things that we very much hope would happen. But I think it's important to note the announcement of another border crossing, or maybe a few days of enough trucks getting in, is simply not going to cut it when it comes to aiding the 2 million plus people who are at imminent risk of acute food insecurity at a scale that is going to matter. So the 19 points that were laid out in the Blinken and Austin letter must be all met together to have a sustainable impact in turning the ship around on this famine.
This is simply not enough, Mercy Corps say, and those words supported by so many others. Do you concede that more needs to be done?
We perform an assessment of the situation on the ground on an ongoing basis to understand what needs to happen and what humanitarian aid needs to make its way into the Gaza Strip. We've been doing this since the beginning. With people on the ground, including the international organizations, but also officers on the ground who are able to see what's going on with the population. And based on all of these different pieces of information that we gather, we understand what the assessment is on the ground. And we understand that there is sufficient aid making its way in. But it's important to understand that we have placed no limit on the amount of humanitarian aid that can make its way into the Gaza Strip. We understand that our war is with Hamas and not with the people of Gaza. So we've taken many steps to increase our capacity to facilitate humanitarian aid coming in. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said about the international organizations.
Right.
Israel can facilitate the entry of the aid into the Gaza Strip, but the distribution is something that is done by the international organizations. And right now, there are about close to 900 trucks worth of aid waiting on the Gaza side of Kerem Shalom, waiting to be picked up and distributed. So that is a bottleneck to aid getting to where it needs to get to.
Those aid agencies sorry, can I just stop you there? Let me just be clear here for the viewers. My understanding is that COGAT need to organise and oversee the distribution of that aid by those aid agencies, they have to coordinate with COGAT, correct? There is a responsibility there by COGAT for coordination.
The coordination does happen with COGAT, and there are dozens of coordinations of humanitarian movements every single day. We want to work together with the organizations to see the aid get to where it needs to get to. We've already cleared this aid. It's gone through security, and it's now waiting on the Gaza side, waiting to be distributed. But the international organizations need to increase their capacity for distribution. Since the beginning of the war, they've entered a total of around 30 trucks to expand their capabilities. It's not nearly enough trucks. And we've been encouraging them for months to purchase additional trucks, and we've been willing to facilitate that. But they just aren't taking the steps that need to get there. So the international organizations need to also increase their capacity if we want to see more humanitarian aid getting to where it needs to get to.
Media analysis and dozens of these aid agencies have said that Israel has failed to meet the first three demands of the US's letter. And I want to read those out for our viewers so that we're all just very clear about what is going on here. US demand number one, as I understand it, ahead of winter, surge all forms of humanitarian assistance throughout Gaza. These are demands on Israel. US demand two, ensure that the commercial and Jordan Armed Forces corridors are functioning at full and continuous capacity. US demand number three, end isolation of northern Gaza. Are you saying that each of those three have been fully achieved?
So let's talk about them one by one. In terms of the first one that you mentioned, increasing the amount of aid, as I said, we are more than willing to increase the amount of aid that is going into the Gaza Strip. That's why we've opened an additional crossing. That's why we continue to increase our capacity. And right now, the bottleneck is with the international organizations. In terms of the Jordanian route, which is one of the routes through which aid comes in, so there's aid that comes in through Egypt into Israel, inspected at Kerem Shalom, and then makes its way to Gaza. Other aid comes from Jordan. Some of it comes to the Ashdod port and then makes its way into northern Gaza, which I think was the third point that you mentioned, right, is aid getting into northern Gaza. And the answer to that is absolutely yes. Not only to the larger aspect of northern Gaza, but even to where we are seeing...
In full numbers, sorry, can I just stop? I just want to be quite clear. So the full numbers on the Jordanian corridor, you're saying that it's not small numbers, it's the full, complete number, correct? That's what you're saying.
We are coordinating together with Jordania so that they can deliver their convoys to the Gaza Strip. That aid is what's coming into the northern side of Gaza, going in through Erez Crossing, mostly through the Erez Crossing, coming into northern Gaza, where aid has absolutely been coming in, including into places where we've seen intense fighting. It's important to remember that there's a war going on with Hamas right now, which is hiding behind civilians, and a war that has only taken place because Hamas decided to declare war on October 7th when they murdered over 1,200 Israelis and kidnapped an additional over 250. But still, aid is making its way to where those battlegrounds are. Last week, we saw a convoy make its way to Jabalia. Just a few days ago, we saw a convoy make its way to Bet Hanun. So aid is absolutely getting to northern Gaza.
Let me put this to you, because the aid agencies are refuting the efforts that are being made by COGAT. I mean, you're aware of those. The Americans are putting heavy demands. They concede that not enough is being done yet, although they say they are seeing some improvement. Shouldn't COGAT be doing more alongside the IDF to ensure a safe and stable environment to be able to reach the affected population? And speaking very specifically to US demand number three, end isolation of northern Gaza. That isn't happening, is it?
So, as I mentioned, there isn't an isolation of northern Gaza. Aid is making its way to northern Gaza and has been making its way consistently. There are trucks coming in from the western Erez Crossing, which is in northern Gaza. Around 50 trucks a day. But I want to go back to what you said in the beginning of your question, where you mentioned the criticism that's coming from international organizations. I think it's important to note that the international organizations each have their own perspective on what is coming in and what is being done. They know what number of trucks they are coordinating and what they're being able to bring into the Gaza Strip. but they don't know what the other organizations are doing. The only body that has the ability to look at it holistically is COGAT. We have representatives at all 5 crossings who see what is going into the Gaza Strip. We are also the ones who are coordinating the movements. And so we know what is going in. And that is based on that information, we are able to present our numbers and to stand behind our assessment.
Can I just ask you finally what your perspective is on the looting of trucks and the what is being reported as significant criminality on the Gaza side of the border? I mean, how do you describe how that is hampering efforts at this point?
Looting is definitely a problem, but it's one that we're trying to help the organization solve. So we've done that by providing alternative routes. If we see that it is a terrorist-related attempt to take over the trucks, then we will actually carry out an attack. So we're trying to help these different organizations and prevent the looting.